This is Faith Talk 99.5. Find podcasts and contact information for all of our national and local ministries at our website, faithtalk995.com. This is Faith Talk 99.5. Revive Our Hearts is coming up in 30 minutes. But now it's Searching for the Truth, sponsored by West 65th Street Church of Christ in Little Rock.
Welcome by the way, to Searching for the Truth, a live and local call-in program. Call in with your comments or questions now. 855-568-1062. That's 855-568-1062. Your friends at the West 65th Street Church of Christ in Little Rock invite you to open your Bible and study with us as Don McClain answers Bible questions with Bible answers in a search for the truth. This program is presented as part of the efforts of the West 65th Street Church of Christ in Little Rock to search for all the truth presented in God's Word and teach that truth to men and women who, like us, are searching for the truth. Now, here's Don McClain.
And good afternoon. Welcome to Searching for the Truth on a beautiful Friday afternoon. Hope that you've had a wonderful day. And as always, so good to be with you. And if you have a Bible question or comment, you can give us a call. Our phone number is 1-855-568-1062, 1-855-568-1062. You can contact us also by email at donmcclain@sbcglobal.net. Check out our website, w65stchurchofchrist.com. Materials available on our website, absolutely free. Just go there and download, listen as much as you like. Again, absolutely free of charge. We've got a lot of material available on our website. We've got a series of lessons on our website, something I haven't mentioned in a while, but we've got several different categories in which you can more easily find what you're looking for. We've got lessons and series of lessons on the church, on authority in religion. We've got lessons also from gospel meetings that we have had here at the West 65th Street Church of Christ, and just a lot of other things that you can find available on our website, w65stchurchofchrist.com. And I was trying to scroll down here and find there's a particular series on evidences available on our website. Not only lessons that I have presented on the subject, on creation, evolution, on the deity of Christ, etc. Not only have I presented lessons, but we have lessons from others along the same lines. And I think there's some very, very good information available. Does God exist? I've been getting a lot of responses lately on Google and YouTube. It's amazing how rude and obnoxious some atheists are. I tell you, it's sad. It really is. I don't know. They're just not happy folks, I don't think, are they? They certainly don't sound like it. So maybe one of them will at least listen a little bit to the broadcast instead of just get on my YouTube page and hurl a bunch of insults and make a bunch of false claims and run your mouth where you really don't know what in the world you're talking about. I'd be more than glad, and hopefully you'll listen to the lesson, to the materials available on our website instead of just spewing venom. Anyway, if you are where you can this afternoon and you want to partake in the program, you can give us a phone call too. You can give us a call at 1-855-568-1062, 1-855-568-1062. And we've been talking about worship, reverence, and godly fear, serving God in a way that pleases Him and it's accepting to Him. Hebrews chapter 12 and verses 18 through 29 has been the text that we've been looking at. Yesterday we were emphasizing verse 25, where the Hebrew writer says, "See that you do not refuse him who speaks, for if they did not escape who refused him who spoke on earth, how much more shall we not escape if we turn away from him who speaks from heaven, whose voice then shook the earth, but now he has promised, saying, Yet once more I shake not only the earth, but also heaven." Now this, yet once more, indicates the removal of those things that are being shaken, as of things that are made, that the things which cannot be shaken may remain. Therefore, since we are receiving a kingdom which cannot be shaken, let us have grace, by which we may serve God acceptably, with reverence and godly fear. For our God is a consuming fire. Yesterday, as I said, emphasized the him who speaks part there in verse 25. Don't turn away from him who speaks from heaven. Well, that's Jesus. Jesus is God's appointed spokesman in this current dispensation. Hebrews 11 and verse 1 and 2. It is Jesus Christ whom we are to hear. Matthew 17 and verse 5. Jesus is the apostle, the one sent by God to deliver God's message to us. We must hear him. And that, as we talked about yesterday, means to obey him. We must submit to what he says. We emphasize that Jesus Christ is the mediator of the new covenant, this testimony, which he, by the way, ratified with his own blood. We tried to emphasize why it is so important to listen to Jesus. Jesus is not just a prophet. Okay? Jesus is not just, some man like Moses or John the Baptist who was sent to God's people and give them a message. Now, Jesus is much more than that. Much more. He's more than a man. First of all, he came down from heaven. He left the glories of heaven, Philippians 2 and verses 6 and 7. And Jesus himself in fact said, that he came down from heaven. No one has seen God at any time, but he who came down from heaven has seen him. That's him. Jesus has seen the Father. He was with the Father in eternity past. John 1 verses 1 and 2. And he has brought to us a new covenant because of who Jesus is. The Creator, Hebrews 1 and verses 1 through 3. He is greater than the angels, Hebrews 1 and verses 4 all the way down through the end of chapter 1. He is greater than Moses, etc., etc. Because of who Jesus is. He is to be respected. Because of what Jesus has done, he is to be respected. He's given his life for us. He shed his blood. And so we tried to emphasize those things yesterday. He is the divinely authorized Son of God with a message. We must hear him. We must obey him. And if we refuse, what will be the consequences? We looked at Hebrews 2 and verses 2 and 3 and Hebrews 10 and verses 28 and 29. Both of those passages emphasize, in fact, by making a contrast between those who rejected Moses. Oh, they were punished severely. But what about us if we refuse him who speaks from heaven? What about us if we reject Jesus Christ and we don't hear him? What will be thought worthy punishment for us who have rejected the one who died for us? And that's the Hebrew writer's approach. How often have we thought about it from that perspective? Now, okay, with that being said, I do want to move on today, and I want to look at verses 28 and 29 and kind of get into the whole point that we've been making since we started looking at this section of Scripture. God is worthy of our worship because of who he is, and we must reverence him. We must serve him with reverence and with godly fear. Beginning in verse 28. Sorry, not verse 28. Let me back up a little bit more. Back up to verse 26. Whose voice then shook the earth, but now he has promised, saying, Yet once more I shake not only the earth, but also heaven. Now this, yet once more, indicates the removal of those things that are being shaken, as of things that are made, that the things which cannot be shaken may remain. Therefore, since we are receiving a kingdom which cannot be shaken, let us have grace, by which we may serve God with reverence and godly fear. God spoke at Mount Sinai, and his voice shook. It shook the earth. And now we have Jesus speaking from heaven. We must hear him. The Hebrew writer speaks of yet another promised shaking of both the earth and the heavens. Perhaps a reference to the book of Haggai, in Haggai chapter 2, verses 6 through 7. A reference to the shaking of the heavens and the earth. And there are many prophecies and passages in the New Testament which reference this uttering in of the new system and the new way, and the diminishing and the eventual passing away of the old. The old was the old covenant. It was the old system, Judaism. And it was to be taken out of the way. It was to be passing away. In fact, that's something that the Hebrew writer had said previously. In fact, he had said it several different times in several different ways. You go all the way back to chapter 7, and he makes the point and talks about how this is to be the old is to be taken away. What about the new? Well, the new has the unchangeable priesthood. The old had the changeable priesthood. It was replaced. The Levitical priesthood was replaced. In chapter 8, it emphasizes again that he has taken the old out of the way. It says in verse 13, in that he says, a new covenant, he has made the first obsolete. Now what is becoming obsolete and growing old is ready to vanish away. That old covenant was being taken away. That old system is being taken away, replaced with a new. And so there's no question that the Hebrew writer here has this in mind, okay, when he talks about how there was a voice that shook the earth in the past, the giving of the law, but now that whole system is going to be taken away. And not only heaven is going to, or earth is going to be shaken, but also heaven in the institution of the new and the going forward with the new and the perpetual nature of the new. It will never pass away. The judgment of God is what is being referenced when he talks about the shaking that's going on. I shake not only the earth, but also heaven. There's going to be a judgment of God. Isaiah 13:13, Haggai 2 and verse 6. The shaking of God, God shaking the heavens and the earth, as a reference to his judgment being executed in the earth and in the spiritual realm. Okay? There was a past shaking, Exodus 19:18. There is a current shaking. The Hebrew writer, in fact, does make mention of this shaking taking place in the present tense. This is yet once more indicates the removal of those things which are being shaken, as of things that are made, that the things which cannot be shaken may remain. There's actually a lot of thought and a lot of application of this principle. First and foremost, though, the point is that the old law and the old system is being taken out of the way. It's being shaken. It's being removed. Right now it's quivering and it's about to pass away. And the new is to be fully ratified and fulfilled and come into existence. And it actually was in existence. It was there. But there was this complete changing of the guard that would indeed take place. The current shaking, things which shaking will continue until that which is temporary be taken out of the way. You know, the Apostle Paul makes the point in the book of Galatians and the 3rd chapter about the law of Moses. And he's answering the question, what purpose then does the law or did the law serve? Well, the point that the Apostle Paul makes in Galatians chapter 3 is that it was added because of transgression till the seed should come. You know, from the very beginning, the giving of the law of Moses, it was given with the intentions it would be temporary. It was a temporary law. When I say the law of Moses, I'm talking about that which was given on Mount Sinai to the Jews. It was their covenant. They entered into covenant with God, and the law of Moses were the articles of that covenant that they were to keep. That was part of an entire system that it all was joined and united together. It was a system within itself. It had a beginning on the Mount Sinai when God gave it to Moses, and then God gave it to the people through Moses. It had a beginning. It also had an end. And it was nailed to the cross, according to the book of Colossians chapter 2. It was nailed to the cross, and as the Apostle Paul makes the point in Galatians chapter 3, it was added because of transgression or sin till the seed should come. He goes on and he says it was as a schoolmaster that would bring us to Christ. And when Christ came, it was no longer needed, because what did Christ do? He brought the new covenant. I've tried to explain or illustrate it this way. It's kind of like a contract that you might sign with your employer or maybe with your employees. It's like a contract, okay? If you have a contract through 2017, all the way through the 1st of 2018, and it's time for you to sign your new contract, you go in and you sign your contract. You may read over it. There may be some changes from the last contract that you had and the new one. Then those changes may be wanted by both you and your employer. You agree to these terms and you sign your contract. Okay, you sign this contract. What part of the old contract is still in effect? How much of it is still in effect? Now, there are many things that are brought over from the old that are no doubt in the new. But hopefully you got a pay increase, your pay increase, so that's going to be new. Your boss can't go back to your old law and say, or your old covenant and say, look, this is what that covenant said. You're not under that covenant anymore. That's the same thing in regard to the old covenant and the new covenant. We're not under the old covenant anymore. We're under the new covenant. And that was being taken away. The law, the temple, the furnishings, the sacrifices, the priesthood, all was taken out of the way. All destined to be completely and finally taken out of the way in the destruction of Jerusalem. The temple, everything was removed. God removed it himself. Took it out of the way. And so, the law of Moses cannot be followed today. It can't. It's impossible. Because the temple, everything has been taken away. So, the priesthood, the Jews don't know who are Levites and who aren't. They may claim they do, but they don't. They can't, because all of the records were destroyed in 70 AD. Everything was done away with. God completely removed that system. So there's only one system left, and that's the gospel system. That's what's left. But now the Hebrew writer makes mention of more than just the removal of this system. He also conjoins the idea or the concept of all things which cannot be shaken may remain. Now listen, what are things that can be shaken? All that is material can be shaken, right? All that is material is actually temporary. You know, this universe, this world, there is a certain law that states that all things are running down, losing energy. By the consumption of energy, energy becomes less and less. And thus, the law of entropy is a truism that cannot be denied or rejected. This world and everything in it is running down. John makes this point in 1 John chapter 2 and verses 15 through 17, where he states that we're to love not the world, nor the things in the world, the lust of the flesh, lust of the eyes, of the pride of life. These things are not of the Father, but of the world. And then he goes on and he makes this point in verse 17. The world is passing away and the lust of it, but he who does the will of God abides forever. Now, those things that were being shaken, that were being taken out of the way, we can also make an application that there are things, all things in this world, all sin, all ungodliness, all worldliness, all things that are material things that we have a love for, that we exalt above God. Guess what's going to happen to all those things? They're all going to be taken away. They're all going to be taken from us. Can't take them with us when we go. Everything is going to be taken away. All things are destined eventually to come to an end. The things which cannot be shaken will remain. What are those things that cannot be shaken? Well, as John states, those who do the will of God, they abide forever. Spiritual things cannot be taken away. They cannot be destroyed. When I say spiritual things, I'm talking about the things of God. The promises of God and those who are God's cannot be destroyed, shall remain forever. The new covenant and those who remain in it will continue. And the reality is everything else will be destroyed. All else will be done away with. Eventually, this world, everything in it, is going to come to an end. Those who are the Lord's, we will be with him forever. There's a passage in the book of 1 Corinthians chapter 15 where the Apostle Paul is talking about the future resurrection. And he makes this point that the kingdom, in fact, the Hebrew writer here is talking about this kingdom, this perpetual kingdom that we have in front of us that cannot be taken out of the way. The Apostle Paul in 1 Corinthians chapter 15 makes this point in verse 22. For as in Adam all die, even so in Christ all shall be made alive. That's talking about the resurrection. But each one in his own order, Christ the first fruits. Jesus was the first. He was the first to be raised from the dead to never die again. It was a bodily resurrection. He is the first. Everybody after him, in fact, all after him will be raised, both wicked and the righteous, according to John 5:28 and 29. All who are in the grave will hear his voice and come forth. Those who have done evil to the resurrection of condemnation, those who have done good to the resurrection of salvation. And that's going to be what happens when Jesus comes again. All who are in the grave shall be raised. But Jesus then makes this point after verse 23, but each one in his own order, Christ the first fruits, afterward those who are Christ at his coming. Then comes the end when he delivers the kingdom to God the Father, when he puts an end to all rule and all authority and power. For he must reign till he has put all enemies under his feet. The last enemy that will be destroyed is death. So at the resurrection, this kingdom, this perpetual kingdom that is mentioned in verse 28, therefore, since we are receiving a kingdom which cannot be shaken, let us have grace. This kingdom is a spiritual kingdom which currently exists and will continue to exist even until Jesus comes again. And when Jesus comes again, this kingdom is not going to stop existing. But Jesus is going to give this kingdom to the Father. He will put an end to his authority, his reign, and he will give the kingdom to the Father. That's what's going to happen according to 1 Corinthians chapter 15 and verses 23 through 27. This kingdom that exists, that we are receiving, Colossians chapter 1 and verse 13 makes the point that we have been translated into this kingdom, into the kingdom of the Son of his love. This is the kingdom that was prophesied by Daniel in Daniel chapter 2 and verses 40 through 44. You know, it's interesting. Daniel made this point in that prophecy. He said that this kingdom will be made without hands. It's a spiritual kingdom. The Jews had a messed up understanding of what the kingdom was and was going to be. They were expecting a materialistic kingdom to come and deliver them from the Roman Empire and authority and reestablish the Jewish nation as the rulers of the world. A materialistic kingdom. And that's not the kingdom that Jesus brought into existence. Well, that's the kingdom we have if we continue faithful. Lord willing, we'll be back Monday. Till then, hope that you have a great weekend. And
the
hope
Church
you'll
of
join
Christ
us
that meets at 7115 West 65th Street in Little Rock has presented this program in the interest of searching for the truth. To request a past program, religious discussion, sermon CD, or religious literature, call 501-568-1062. That's 501-1062. You can email Don McClain by going to the church's website, w65stchurchofchrist.com. If you prefer to write to the West 65th Street Church of Christ, the address is P.O. Box 190062, Little Rock, Arkansas 72219. Please join us for Bible study this Sunday morning at 9 a.m. and worship at 10 a.m. Sunday evening worship begins at 5 p.m. We also have a Wednesday evening Bible study at 7 p.m. You're welcome at any and all of these services. Tell your friends to tune in each weekday at 3 p.m. for Searching for the Truth on Faith Talk 99.5. We hope our efforts will help you as you search for the truth.
This is Faith Talk 99.5. If you're on social media, you'll love our pages. Like our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter. Find the links at faithtalk995.com.